Bungoma is the first place where Kenyan Africans started growing coffee. Today, Bungoma is among the top 4 counties in production of coffee in Kenya and rapidly growing. Generally, there's a relatively steady and higher earnings selling your coffee on the global market than selling through the Nairobi auction locally. The people who grow sugarcane for factories that are run by the government have the biggest challenge in sugarcane farming. I want to keep government as far away as possible from my farming. Government has no good intention when it comes to your farming. And if you have been dependent on government, run away, be scared. Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Dr. Mukhisa Kituyi, and welcome to a brief introduction to my small farming enterprises. I've been building up some farming activity here for the last 20 years, but over the recent past, since I left working for the UN, I diversified a little bit and went particularly into avocado farming, beekeeping, fish farming, among other things. But I scaled back. I stopped growing maize, I stopped keeping cattle. For a typical Luya, you are born into farming, so you don't make any active decision to start farming. You are farming because you are there and the farm is there. There is an excitement about being into farming business. But then after being able to acquire an asset, you start thinking, how can I optimize or gain returns on my investment in the farming facility? So you'll say the initial drive was to recoup the cost of buying the land and try to make a profit out of owning the land. And then as that goes along, I have a number of locals who work for me as permanent or casual staff, and it's a privilege to be able to put food on the tables of so many different people in the community. Those are among the inspirations.
Jina langu ni Daniel Mwanda Kisaka. Niko kwa shamba ya Honorable Mheshimiwa Mukhisa Kituyi kama manager. Nilikuja hapa mwaka wa 2016 ili nimwangalilie mali yake akiwa UN.
A latter day emerging inspiration is to demonstrate to my neighbors, most of my neighbors are small-scale land holders, the possibilities of different things they can do on their land, whether it is a small family apiary for beekeeping, a small fish pond for production of fish and supplementing the other income from other farming activities. Demonstrating how it can be done within the village setting has been also an important inspiration. I'm only into my second year as a fish farmer now. I do 2 types of fish, tilapia mainly, but I also do catfish. Number 1, number 2, and number 3, a steady and guaranteed supply of water. And number 4, properly designed fish ponds. Limited siltation, proper protection on the inside, cleaning an area around the fish ponds. And then what's important also, having access to quality feeds for the fish and having access to the correct fingerlings. When I started, the biggest challenge I had was young men from my neighborhood coming from homes which have been receiving a free supply of mosquito nets. They will descend on my fish ponds in the evening and sweep out all the fish and take away. That was a very, very major challenge. It forced me, first of all, to relocate the area of the fish ponds away from areas that could easily be reached by my neighbors. And secondly, to have full-time people employed to guard the ponds from fish mining by some young men in my neighborhood. There are normal indicators between the period of growth and the weight gain that are important, particularly if you are producing what are called sex fish, that they are one gender, monogender, for consumption. Major considerations in marketing is you look at consumption habits in your neighborhood, the local towns and villages and markets. And secondly, you look at those who are already into fish farming. How do they dispose of their catch? How do they sell what they produce? So I am just on the brink of my first sale, and I hope my sense of market intelligence will confirm my expectations that there has been a growing appetite for fish with a very limited supply in this area. We see it from the queues in the marketplaces, people waiting to buy what is brought in from other fish ponds and from Kisumu. You can mitigate some of the challenges. One of the most important ones is what you do with wastewater when you empty the pond after a cycle of production. Now what we do here is that we are developing what we call a sink pit, an area of swamp into which we send the water from the pond after a change of cycle, in which we expect that biological processes will clean the water before it is let out into the river. We don't directly open wastewater to the river system, but we do the cleaning soak pit for environmental consciousness. And similarly, we avoid using hazardous chemical substances in any of the stages of the production on our fish ponds. First of all is be enterprising enough to say, I will try it. Secondly, look at the considerations I've mentioned, particularly you have access to water, particularly for the dry season. And secondly, that you have secured it against fish thieves, and particularly in a neighborhood, in a village, young men coming with mosquito nets can drain everything you have invested in. So securing your ponds from such act is very, very important. And then three, be aware of the upfront cost of feeds. They are fairly steep in the market. And if you don't have sufficient feeding, then it trickles down to the quality and profitability of what you are investing in. There are different variants in the climatic conditions for growing coffee. In fact, it's very interesting that if you speak in Nairobi about growing coffee, people think that you are talking about Mount Kenya region. They assume the coffee grown in Kenya is from Mount Kenya region. What they don't know is two facts. Number one, in 1953, the colonial state granted Africans the right to start growing coffee. The first such right was granted to Chwele Farmers Cooperative Society in Bungoma County. So Bungoma is the first place where Kenyan Africans started growing coffee. Secondly, today Bungoma is among the top 4 counties in production of coffee in Kenya and rapidly growing. So is Trans Nzoia. This region, the volcanic soils from Mount Elgon, the climatic conditions, the level of water and humidity make it very, very good for production of quality Arabica coffee. There is a typical training for crop husbandry on both feeding, management of pests, quality control. When you met me with a young man who was coming to take acidity tests of my coffee field, for example, to advise if we need to do enliming or what are the conditions before we know the next cycle of investments in fertilizers and any additives necessary to optimize the production of the fields.
My name is Emmanuel Okomba from Kenan Tech Limited. We are here with Maxil, our solution called Maxil. And Maxil is a solution to farmers. Maxil is a soil conditioner and a booster that comes to correct soil pH and boost the crop.
So the science of coffee farming is around quite a bit, and there's a sufficient number of people from this area who have done not only on-farm training, but also visited colleges to learn about the proper coffee husbandry.
Pande ya kahawa, ikisha uweka matunda yake green, not the red like this one, green. Inachukua muda kama mwezi wa 3, tuta harvest mwezi wa 9, wa 10 hadi 11. That is time for harvesting. Na tuna harvest kama imeripe, imekuwa brown kama hivi. Iko machine of which you have seen inside there. Tunaleta hapa and a lot of water. Sasa wakati wanaweka kahawa kwa pulping machine, hiyo machi inapitia, inaosha. It selects the skin, inapitia upande mwingine. Kahawa yenyewe inapitia upande mwingine.
So after we've pulped and we dry until the humidity or water content is below 12%, we put in bags, and we go to coffee marketing services who run a mill in Eldoret, where they do the hulking, or what's called milling, basically making it green beans for us. Now, when I get to that, I usually take my coffee to bonded warehouses in Three Rivers in Nairobi, and foreign buyers come to sample what we have, and we sell direct to export market. The amount that we sell on the global market, of course, is dependent on the international dynamics. The harvest in Colombia and Brazil, the quantities and quality produced in Vietnam, all those details impact on what kind of prices there are. But generally, there's a relatively steady and higher earnings selling your coffee on the global market than selling through the Nairobi auction locally. Yeah, coffee is a fairly commonly available plant. The problem with the coffee is that it takes quite substantial amount of attention and resourcing. For example, there's a much higher return on avocado than on coffee, and yet the husbandry of coffee is much more difficult than the husbandry of avocado. So people have to learn. I know there's a lot of people already plant some coffee, mainly in their banana fields at home. It's worthwhile reviving and growing the coffee industry again, particularly if national government can streamline in a consistent way the marketing of produce and deliver the best benefit to the farmers who are producing the product. I don't irrigate my sugarcane. I just plow the soil, prepare the fields properly, put fertilizer, top it up with what is called a filter mat or scum, the residue that comes after the processing of sugar, which is a mix of bagage and molasses, then getting fermented. A very, very good organic fertilizer. Top that up with DAP for planting and urea for top dressing, and do the weedings. That's all that you need to do for the sugarcane. First crop when you start the cycle depends on your altitude. If you are closer to Kisumu, to Lake Victoria, and the high humidity means you take less time for the crop to mature. If you are further away and higher ground like Trans Nzoia, it takes more time to mature. But roughly in this region, we take about 18 months from planting until the crop is ready to harvest. But when you have the ratoon, meaning after you harvest, since you don't plant again, you just cut and prepare and it sprouts again, that takes between 14 and 16 months to be ready. You don't market sugarcane. My farm is next door to Rice Naitiri Sugar Factory. So the tractor services, contractors for transporting cane come the short half kilometer from the factory to my farm to collect. All you have to do is to go and get the slips when the cane is ready. An inspector from the factory comes to verify that the fields are ready for harvesting, and they give you the days when the tractors can come, and you hire on the commercial market cane cutters who come from 5 a.m. in the morning, cut down the cane before the tractors arrive to transport it to the factory. The people who grow sugarcane for factories that are run by the government have the biggest challenge in sugarcane farming.
Sugarcane farmers drawn from the Nyando sugar belt have cried foul after the government failed to remit their monies 7 months after Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri promised them that they would.
Kwa nini serikali inaamua kufungua Mumias peke yake ifanye na inafunga factory yetu ya hapa na Busa Sugar? Sisi tumekataa kama wakazi wa hapa, biashara zetu zimeathirika. Hakuna kazi, kwa hivyo tumepoteza kazi kwa sababu factory yetu imefungwa.
Because management of government sugar factories manages how to steal from the farmer much more than how to make farming reward. Like I mentioned to you, all the private factories that are crushing sugar in Kenya pay you the second week after you deliver your cane. Anything delivered this week, you know that there will be a check in your account next week and you'll get an SMS. We send you so much money because of so many kgs at such a price. Government factories like Nzoia, farmers go for a year without being paid, and then some minister comes and says the government is paying some of the debt owed to farmers. They don't tell you, you crushed our cane. Where did the money from selling our sugar go? So that is the big problem. Areas like this where we have private players, the main challenge usually comes when there is an oversupply. There's a glut in the market and the factories are not harvesting in good time. And then the cane is losing in weight and that becomes a net loss to the farmer. The biggest challenge I've faced as a sugarcane farmer is a stupid thing government of Kenya did last year. Out of the blues, they decided in July last year that there is not enough sugarcane to keep factories open. So we'll close all factories for 3 months.
Now to Kakamega County, where sugarcane farmers in the entire Sugar Belt region are lamenting a directive by the Agricultural and Foods Authority to suspend operations in all sugar companies in the country.
Utufungulie viwanda. Miwa zangu ziko tayari kukatwa. Sasa nashangaa anapoongeza miezi 4, miwa zangu zitaenda wapi?
It is not their cane, it is not their farms. They have no idea whose cane is ready and whose cane is not ready. So if your cane was ripe in July last year and remained on your farm for 3 months because government had stupidly made a unilateral decision to close the factories, of course we know the reason why they were closing. So there's a shortage of sugar in the country and the politically correct thieves can import cheap sugar from abroad and sell to Kenyans. Now that is the biggest hazard to those of us who work with the private sector. The greed of people in government who want to make illegal profits by importing sugar, unilaterally stopping us from crushing sugar in the country. That's the main challenge. I want to keep government as far away as possible from my farming. Government has no good intention when it comes to your farming. And if you have been dependent on government, run away, be scared. Oh, I don't know if there's a unique general challenge. We're experimenting different things to supplement each other. For example, in the last 3 years, the main area of investment I'm going into is avocado. And farming avocado has a unique challenge. You need a steady supply of water 12 months a year. What it led me to is something I'm very proud of. I've utilized a technology that has disappeared in Kenya. I pump water from the bottom of a riverbed over a distance of 700 meters to my reservoir, a height of 43 meters, without using solar or electricity. We have what they call the water hammer. We just use pressure in a pipe to build pressure in a compressing unit that pumps water for the avocado, which is both environmentally very clean and even economically very sustainable because you don't have pumping costs. But that has been part of the challenge as we rolled out into avocado, which I think is the crop of the future for this region. The unit returns on avocado are much higher than coffee. Sugarcane has better returns than coffee in this region, but avocado has almost 50 times more return than sugarcane. So once you master the real inputs and the husbandry. Well, climate change is a reality, but there's no microclimate change that I have to deal with on a daily basis on my farm. Partly because I'm privileged that my farm bestrides a permanent river that comes from Mount Elgon. So the water availability challenge, which is a major challenge for farming, is a bit diminished for me. The cost of moving water around is a challenge that we have to deal with, but we're dealing with it well. And finally, of course, over the past 2 years, I've also gone into beekeeping. I have a small apiary of about 100 beehives, and we are set to expand. We've just been learning the tricks and sent our staff to train on beekeeping. And this is just some of the steps we're making as we try to diversify and utilize available land resources, but also be able to demonstrate to other people what is possible and what is feasible. A big challenge in farming in Kenya is the absence of consistent, dependable government service, government support. Similarly, limited access to farming capital. When the government is borrowing all the money available in banks, the cost of borrowing money goes so high with the limited returns on agricultural investment. Farmers, small-scale farmers, cannot afford to borrow money invest in agriculture, and pay back that money with interest and retain a profit. So this cash-strapped sector is holding back the possibilities of agricultural investment. I think it's beyond the thinking of Ruto's government. You know, their obsession with tax. They have been taxing farmers the little that they can make. Makes it very, very difficult to look to this government as a solution to some of the challenges. But basically, with the proper support, agriculture should be able to sustain livelihoods and lay the foundation for people to look for diversified sources of income.